Today, we are diving into the top 10 fantasy and science fiction authors born between 1946 and 1964. The boomers who shaped whole fantasy realms and alternate dimensions and probably traumatized us a little along the process.
So get ready for epic quests, morally great characters, sci-fi shenanigans, and more dragons than you can shake a wand at. Hi there, welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where father and son sit down and talk about fantasy books. I'm the son of that equation, Zach.
And I'm the father, Jim. Thanks for being with us here today. We've got some great authors to talk to you about, bringing a top 10 list to you. If you enjoy this, don't forget to give us a like. And we hope you'll subscribe to the channel. Lots of goodness here just waiting for you.
So today, we're doing something bold, something controversial, something that makes our pre-show debates sound like Game of Thrones council meetings.
Yeah, we had a little going back and forth. We're ranking our top 10 favorite science fiction and fantasy authors of the baby boomer generation.
Mm-hmm.
So these are authors specifically born between 1946 and 1964. The generation that grew up on Tolkien and then said, hold my pipeweed.
Of course, this ranking is totally objective. I mean, subjective. It's just our opinion here at Fantasy for the Ages, and sometimes it's a little bit of a compromise of opinions.
Yes. We
didn't always agree. Sometimes we had to roll off for it, but we got there.
But here we have them for you now. We're going to bring these top 10. And again, you're going to be surprised. You know, there's no Tolkien here. I mean, some of those authors you think of the biggest and best, they're from too far back. We're starting with the boomers.
Hold on. Are you saying Tolkien's too old?
He's too old to make this list. That's for sure. But coming in at number 10 in our list, Stephen R. Donaldson, the author who said, what if our hero hated being a hero and also everything else? The Chronicles of Thomas Covenant introduced a protagonist who I know Zach kind of hates. He makes you want to scream and simultaneously, for some of us, deeply feel his pain. It's gritty, raw, painfully human. Donaldson proved early on that fantasy didn't have to be cozy. It could be psychologically intense and morally complex. Zach, this is one we argued about and ended up on 10. I'm almost glad he just stayed on the list.
Yeah, for all my dislike of Thomas Covenant, especially the character, rather than the series as a whole, I couldn't finish it. I just didn't like the character that much. I do have to allow and give props to you and your preferences and some of how Donaldson is foundational to you reading fantasy and how you enjoy it.
Oh, yeah.
There's a reason he published as many books as he did.
And the thing is, there's 10 books in the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant series, but he wrote a lot of other things, fantasy, but also sci-fi. The Gap Cycle is I think 5-book series that's wonderful, creative science fiction where he shows he can write in either lane without any issue at all.
So I allow for him here at 10 because while I'm not getting back to Thomas Covenant, maybe I'll try some of his other stuff because he's not a bad author.
There you go. Coming in at number 9, a man who taught us that the Force isn't all sunshine and midichlorians. It's Matthew Stover. Known best for his Heroes Die, Blade of Tyshel, the Axe of Cain series, Stover blends brutal philosophical musings with bone-crunching action. And don't even get us started on Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. His novelization made Anakin's fall hurt, brought it much more to life than they could actually do on the screen. If Nietzsche played D&D and had a lightsaber, he'd write like Stover.
Yeah, we went from one of my least favorite on this top 10 to one of my favorite on these top 10. And so you could already see the back and forth and really hard decisions that my dad and I made here.
Yeah. Just as a random thought that hits my head now, Nietzsche. Is it Nietzsche or is it Nietzsche? I don't remember. It is Nietzsche?
It's Nietzsche, I think.
It's Nietzsche. Okay.
It's not English.
It's German. And I know this. And I know who this is. But as I'm saying it, I'm like, did I just say that wrong?
Look, at the end of the day, I don't think he would say it matters, considering he said nothing does.
No, nothing
So,
matters. Nihilism is real, and who cares? Yeah. Uh, yeah, the Acts of Cain, such intense work. But way before I knew that, I had that Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, that novelization sitting on our shelf.
I remember seeing it on the shelf.
Yeah.
I've never read that.
So when
Good.
the Acts of Cain was recommended to us, wait, I know that guy. But so many people haven't heard of the Acts of Cain. And so I doubt he'd show up on the top 10 list for many people.
But he should. More people should read it.
100%.
Obviously, trigger warnings galore, but it's fantastic.
Yep. Number 8 goes to a man who gave us the literary equivalent of a PhD in world building, Stephen Erickson. Malazan, Book of the Fallen, basically a 10-volume test of your willpower, which Zach has not made it through yet.
I'm getting another percent or two every week or so.
It took me, I think, over a year and a half to make it through these 10 books. But if you survive it, you get an honorary sword and soul-crushing trauma. It's something. I mean, with characters like Animander Rake, Tool, and Fiddler, Erickson, he delivers high concept, high stakes, high confusion fantasy that somehow pays off every time. The finishes of these books are incredible. And then what I've most experienced with that in my rearview mirror is you can go on and read so much more of what he's written in this world, and it just gets better and better.
I've only actually gotten through about a book and a half of the 10. I will admit that. But I do think it's really good and worth it. I desperately wish I had started reading this series in a different format, because it took you about a year and a half to get through these. It's taken me about a year and a half to get halfway through the second book.
Yeah. What do you think? You switch to a different format with the
I might switch to an audiobook or buy them in paper. Part of it is I have all 10 on ebook. It was a deal. I got them cheap, and I was like, yeah. But I'm reading them on my phone, and I just don't like that format.
Gotcha. Well, it's definitely worth finding a way. It's one of the best epic fantasy series I've ever read. Just so much to it. And he's a master writer.
He's still only spot 8, so obviously we put some people from this generation even higher.
Indeed. Number 7 is Tad Williams, the guy who asked, what if elves had bureaucracy? Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn helped shape modern epic fantasy. Yes, a Song of Ice and Fire fans? George R. Martin has admitted Tad Williams was an inspiration for his work. And let's not forget Otherland, a cyberpunk fantasy sci-fi mind trip before Ready Player One made it cool. Definitely ahead of its time. Tad Williams can write the phone book.
I'm really excited to get into Tad Williams. I haven't gotten there in my journey yet, but he's one of those authors that very quickly has risen to the top of my list of people who wrote in an older generation, are from an older generation, and their books have been out and around for a while, and I need to get to them and not just ignore some of the older stuff for more modern fantasy. It's worth it.
What's kind of nice still with some of these authors, like Tad Williams, is they're still active. They've got stuff that's been around for decades, but they're still putting out quality fantasy or sci-fi, whatever. They're still writing.
And all of the above.
Yes. Coming in at 6 is here because I recognize this author's brilliance, but not one of my personal favorites. Sir Terry Pratchett, the man who proved that satire and fantasy go together like trolls and bridge tolls. Discworld, over 40 books of hilarious brilliance for those who get it, poking fun at everything from religion to postal services, while still delivering deeply profound truths. Terry Pratchett makes people laugh and makes people better people if you're really paying attention. I mean, that's wizard level writing. I've only tried 3 of his books, and they're entertaining. They're good. I just didn't get on the Pratchett bandwagon, but I have enough experience with his writing and with what everybody says about him to say, yeah, it should be in a top 10. It definitely is worthy.
Anytime I see or hear anything with Terry Pratchett, it always reminds me of something fantastic about fantasy, and that's that it can be whimsical and fantastical. Just because it's fantasy doesn't mean it has to be dark or has to be world ending, big stakes. Sometimes the escapism can just be fun.
At the same time, though, as Pratchett writes, in most of these books, the best just fun fantasy is still saying some deep things, some real truths. Whether you discover them or not, it's kind of up to you as a reader. Do you think about it or you just laugh and enjoy? But it's there in Discworld. Number 5, a 2-for-1 special. Megan Lindholm, who's also known as Robin Hobb.
Oh!
The queen of emotional devastation, they say. Whether it's Farseer, Live Ship Traders, or Rain Wilds, which you are reading right now, Hobb has a gift for crafting characters so real, you'll cry when they lose their pet. Or just stub a toe. You care about these people. And let's not forget, Hobb pioneered the animal companion that ruins you emotionally trope.
She's got a great and terrible habit of being able to write a character that from the get-go has depth and complexity, and they're interesting, but man, I hate them. They're not going to be redeemable, but I look at them and I go, 2 books from now, you're going to have explained to me something, and they're going to have grown so much that I'm not going to be able to help to in some way, at least kind of root. I'm still going to hate them, but I'm also going to just like, it's going to be almost like their family in the sense where I can not like them and be frustrated with them, but also I love them enough that I want them to be better. And it's a really frustrating experience to be like, no, let me hate these characters.
I find this author's journey a little fascinating because got started writing as Megan Lindholm. That's her maiden name. Stayed with it, dabbling in fantasy and a little bit of sci-fi for a while, short stories, then some novels, finding success, then decided I want to do epic fantasy and created this Robin Hobb persona just for that. And then you end up with the Realm of the Elderlings, which is more successful than anything else she's written.
By far.
Yeah. But all of it is good. So definitely top 10 worthy for the boomers.
The last thing I really want to note on Robin Hobb that sets them apart in their writing style in books is the fact that she made this big fantasy series, Realm of the Elderlings, but successfully, intentionally broke it up into chunks that are approachable. It's not the only person who's done this, but it's not like we've got a Wheel of Time that's 14, 15 books and that you get no breaks.
Right. Yeah. No, Terry Brooks definitely modeled this style. Another author we're not talking about because too old. He's older than the boomers. Just missing the podium, the top 3 of our list, is Martha Wells. And yes, Murderbot is technically sci-fi, but on this channel and episode, we give equal love to fantasy, sci-fi. This is all about SFF, so I have no issue. This is a number 4 slot on this list. Yeah. I don't know. Have you caught Murderbot, the TV show, at all yet?
Oh, we've been watching it as it came out. We loved it.
Oh, it was marvelous. And it was a great adaptation of the Murderbot Diaries. But there's also the Books of Raxura, the Witch Kings. I think it's the Witch King stuff. There's sci-fi, there's fantasy. Wells is accomplished and gives us anxious, anti-social protagonists that we can all relate to. This is not the heroic, perfect person that you're following. No, these are cool characters. She writes heart with humor and sarcasm with sincerity. And Murderbot is my favorite so far for basically the hero that we all need and kind of a millennial. Somehow she understands how to write a relatable millennial.
I'll be completely honest. I have zero problem with Martha Wells being on this list, but I didn't expect her here because I didn't think she was that old.
Yeah, 1964. This section goes from 46 to 64. She just sneaks in on the boomer list, but she's a boomer. All right, let's move to the podium then. Bronze goes to Robert Jordan, the man who said, Why stop at one prophecy when we can have 12? Yeah. The Wheel of Time, with intricate magic systems, endless character arcs, and more braid tugging than a competitive knitting competition. Love him or groan at the pacing, Jordan defined epic fantasy for a generation. And his notes, in the hand of Brandon Sanderson for the final 3 Wheel of Time books, launched Brandon's career to new levels.
Yeah, there's a reason why our channel started really diving into this series, and we've gone elsewhere from there. It's a favorite of ours. That's a secret to no one. It can be a bit much to chew sometimes.
The Wheel of Time was the first series that I kept going back to a bookstore looking for the next book. Because, this is pre-internet. And it's like, when's the next one coming? When's the next one coming? And really made me a rabid reader of this style of fantasy.
And on the flip side, it was really the first truly adult fantasy that I read as an adult, finished, and kickstarted my whole dive into, all right, I'm an adult now. Let's get reading.
There you go. Now, Robert Jordan did put other works out, but The Wheel of Time is where it's at. That's peak Jordan. And like you said, there's a lot of them. They're sitting on the shelf behind me. They're big books. That's a lot. If you never read anything else from Jordan, you're okay. This is where you really discover Robert Jordan's brilliance. Silver on our top 10 goes to George R.R. Martin, whose A Song of Ice and Fire redefined medieval fantasy as a political bloodbath with dragons. From a Game of Thrones to a Storm of Swords, Grim, as some of us call him instead of saying the name all the time, serves betrayal with a side of heartbreak. No character is safe, not even your favorite. We're still waiting on Winds of Winter, though, because the series is not done. I mean, at this point, we all know winter is coming, but Winds of Winter may never get here. We just don't know.
Consistently flip-flop back and forth on the train of, man, I really did enjoy those, to, man, I'm really upset we probably aren't ever getting another book. And so ask me, depending on the day and different times, I will tell you how much I love or hate these books and this author.
Mm-hmm.
I do think he deserves this spot and this high, even going above Robert Jordan, if only because of the adaptation, because of the show, and how big it has become for the masses.
Yeah, the interesting thing with Martin is this one's going to be a polarizing pick for us. Okay, to put him at number 2. There are some that absolutely love A Song of Ice and Fire. It's one of their favorite fantasy out there, period, even though it's not done. They don't care. It's just I love it. I reread it all the time. Then there are others who go, A Game of Thrones was pretty cool, and it just goes all downhill from there.
And that's fair.
And many of those are ones who read all 5 books and are like, yeah, he just never quite recaptures the brilliance. Now, I didn't have that experience. I enjoyed every book, but I guess I was still liking the different approach that it was bringing to fantasy fiction compared to anything else I'd found at that point. Yeah,
I enjoyed the book. I enjoyed the show. And at the end of the day, to me, he gets a lot of points because I get to talk about fantasy in general in my life and not have everyone just look at me like I'm the weird nerd, even if they don't personally read a whole lot of fantasy. He, in many ways, validated fantasy readers in a modern age.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Before I reveal number 1, pull the curtain back a little bit. I developed an initial draft of the top 10. Zach reviewed it. Then we discussed. We made some tweaks. We changed some things. So it is our list.
Mm-hmm.
I feel very good with our number 1, and Zach didn't challenge it at all. So I'm proud of him as well.
I didn't fight you on it. I thought it was deserved, even as he's not necessarily my favorite author of all time,
right?
Or even from this generation necessarily, but I do think he probably deserves the spot.
So taking the top spot, the king himself, literally, Stephen King. He may be best known for horror, but fantasy runs deep in his bibliography. The Dark Tower, a genre-defining and defying odyssey that somehow connects practically everything he's ever written. The Eyes of the Dragon, The Stand, Fairy Tale, one of his most recent books. King does fantasy, and he does it like nobody else. It has a distinct King feel to it, with unforgettable characters and a knack for capturing raw humanity amid the supernatural. Plus, he publishes faster than most people can read the books. He has earned the #1 slot.
I ultimately had to have no problem with this because when I looked at it, I said, look, even if this wasn't a list of sci-fi fantasy authors, if this was just a list of authors in general, King has written some amazing things and has been prolific with his writing to an extent that he at least makes podium of all of the authors of this generation, not just these genres. So yeah, he can take the #1 slot. That's fair.
Another thing that amazes me about King, I've read a ton of his stuff. There's a lot of his newer stuff I have not yet read. We're slowly getting there. But he has definitely adapted and morphed as the years have gone by. And there's been a lot of years. He barely makes it in here. He's born in 1947. Boomers start in 46. He almost is too old to make this, and yet he's still an active author. We get a new book every year. Every year. It's like, he's literally told his wife, okay, Tabby, if they're ever starting to suck, tell me, okay? So I know to stop. He just can't stop writing at this point, and it's glorious.
I will personally say one of my favorite things about King as an author is that most of his most successful adaptations, his best ones, are the ones he likes the least. The ones that he thinks don't hold true to his story, but they're so good when they also kind of ignore him to put it on the screen.
There's one other thing I can toss in about Stephen King, and that's he makes this list not only because of his fantasy and, The Dark Tower has sci-fi elements as well, but I consider horror kind of in the same pot. So
we talk about it on this channel.
All this fantastical stuff that happens in horror, he's definitely belonging.
Look, he's not here for any true crime novels.
No. Well, no, actually he's done some true crime novels too.
I didn't say he hasn't written them. I just said that's not why he's here.
All right, before we wrap, I do have an honorable mention. I want to give a shout out to Kim Stanley Robinson. And I know Glenn, he's watches all of these. He'll appreciate that I'm giving some love to Robinson. So he gets this honorable mention because he is just a master of speculative fiction. Works like the Mars trilogy,